Hey, my name is Barbie Armenta. I'm a wife, mother, life coach, and founder of Brave One. Everyone has a story, and I believe that you can be inspired in your own life by hearing another woman's courageous story. We're here to talk about purpose, identity, divorce, splitting families. If you're talking about it, I want to talk about it. We are here to have brave conversations. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited about today's guest. You are going to love her. Her name is Kelli Calabrese, and she is a soul coach for women. Kelli has a Master of Science degree in mental health and divorce and wellness coach. She empowers women to overcome their fears through spirit, mind, and body approach. She has a Facebook group called Intentionally Fabulous, and she is very fabulous. So I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Barbie, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I am glad you're here, and I like to get the story behind the story. So we want to hear all the things today. So just tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, what it was like growing up.
I was blessed to grow up in New York, and I say that because I think you kind of get a little edge starting out in New York by two amazing parents who adored and loved each other, met when they were 10, married at 20, and they were together, 60 years when my dad passed. And it was a great childhood. I have a younger brother, and we were a blue-collar, hard-working family. My dad worked for the city of New York. They had multiple businesses that they started, about 10 of them throughout their marriage, delis, restaurants, pizzerias, and I grew up working in their businesses, including construction. So it was a good work ethic, good core values that were taught. And then we moved to New Jersey when I was 13. And again, great childhood, really, really blessed.
I love everything about that story. It paints such a picture for me. Well, one, when you say New York, we can tell you're from New York because I don't say it the same way. But I love that we were just in New York a few weeks ago and just the pizza places and all the things that you're describing. What an amazing way to grow up with that entrepreneur spirit in your home.
Yes, I definitely, it's in me. It's kind of in your blood when you do that. You don't know any other way except to work hard, serve people, figure it out. I know pivot is kind of a new word this past year or two, but when you own businesses, you're always pivoting, looking to serve and looking to help more people.
I love that. Now, did you grow up in a Christian home? Was church a part of what y'all did?
So we grew up Catholic. I went to the same little Catholic school that my mom went to. And there were, like 20 kids from first grade through eighth grade. And then I did go to a public high school. But we grew up Catholic, did all the sacraments, and that was our religion. It was Northeast, Italian, New York. Catholic was, so much of your religion is culture. So that's what the culture really was for us.
Did you have amazing food in your house all the time?
We did. We hardly ever ate out. Mom was a great cook, or we would eat at the restaurant, deli, pizzeria. So it was delicious.
It sounds like it. I just envision these family gatherings with really nice food.
Yes. Definitely treasure those moments. And when I go home, I will have Mom's lasagna and eggplant parm and all the things I don't normally eat at all anymore, but I reserve them for the days she cooks.
I love that. So how did you end up in Texas?
So 16 years ago, my husband at the time had the opportunity to have a promotion, and we had just built the house of our dreams. Our kids were 4 and 5. We were actually living right next door to my parents and surrounded by so much family. But we just loved the idea of a lifestyle change where we didn't have the brutal winters, and we really would stand alone as a family of 4 for the first time because we had so much support. So we were excited about, being able to ride bikes in the winter and just start something new in a new place.
So you came to Texas. You mentioned you love riding bikes and doing things. I know that has wellness and health always been a part of your life?
Always. When I was 13, I wrote in my journal, I've always been a diary journal girl, I will be an exercise therapist. And really at the time, I had no idea what that meant. I just knew I was really happy when I was running, dancing, jumping, swimming, cheer, like anything I could do to move and get this endorphin rush. I was like, what do people not get about this? Like, this is great. So I was always moving towards that, but really also moving away from a really strong family history of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, stroke, cancer, alcoholism, and on both sides of the family. And I just went, ooh, I don't want any part of that. And I knew my dad had a really strong family history of heart disease. He was the oldest living male in his family at 36. So I wound up going on and getting a master's degree in clinical exercise physiology and cardiac rehabilitation, thinking I want to help my dad, but I want to help everyone. Like, I hate what God hates. I hate sickness. I hate illness. I hate disease. and I want everyone to be well. And I've woken up, for the past 35 years with that as my mission.
Oh, that's so amazing. You're really breaking off what can be very generational in families of just continuing those cycles. And so just to see that God placed that in you from such a young age to break that off, not only for your family, but for others is really amazing.
Yes, it stops with me. And I've made lots of mistakes with my kids who are now 21 and 22. But if I did one thing right, they are fiercely healthy and fit. They are athletes. They have the mindset. They eat well, they move every day, they exercise. And so they got that right.
I love that. So what did career look like for you once you came to Texas?
Well, when I first graduated, I wound up owning health clubs while we were still in New Jersey, and I managed corporate fitness centers, and I founded a school. And that was really the first 14 years of my career. And it was beautiful and fun. But then when my kids were born, I didn't want to be that kind of mom. I wanted to be available for my kids. So I came home and I started writing, speaking, consulting, editing, spokesperson, media work, really anything that I could do to contribute to my industry on a really high level, but still be that mom. Then when we came to Texas, my husband at the time actually did have a decent job, and he was like, "You're not going to have to work." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's going to be amazing." And so I thought I was just going to, go to the gym, get a personal trainer. This will be fun. Well, he lost that job within a few months of us getting here. In fact, our house in New Jersey wasn't even sold yet. So I started doing some fitness boot camps. I had the largest boot camp in the country. It just went really fast. And then I started helping to open boot camps all over the country and the world. And I also got involved in network marketing kind of accidentally in a nutrition company and became a top achiever and an executive in that company. And then just really plugged into the community. I started doing a lot of speaking. I've been blessed to speak all over the world. I spoke for Richard Branson in Italy, and I've spoken at resorts and on cruise ships and for top companies like Calvin Klein and Blue Cross Blue Shield, BMW. So I started doing that for the next season. And then the next really big turning point for me was when my husband of 25 years married came home and said, "My commitment is 0 to our marriage," and he left. And that was the next really big, maybe even the biggest turning point in my life and shift in career and really everything.
That had to be difficult on so many levels because you are someone that succeeds. That whatever it sounds like, whatever you go after, you're not doing anything halfway. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to be the best, whether it's network marketing or speaking for Richard Branson. Those are no small achievements. And so when you go into a marriage, I would assume that you went into it the same way. So were you pretty blindsided?
It floored me. I was totally blindsided. It emptied me out, brought me to the fetal position, and really had me question everything in my life. I mean, I really thought I was a rock star wife. I mean, I was a good wife. I did all the things and running the house and having the money come in. And unfortunately, he was never a provider for our family. So he had 26 jobs in the 26 years we were together. So I was primarily the provider, plus, making sure the kids are in church and having the best tutors for their SATs and all the things. And so I was very blindsided, and I went on a 2-year sabbatical where I almost couldn't function. I couldn't do the things I was doing. I couldn't just show up and do nutrition sales or really a whole lot. My brain wasn't working. So I did all the things like divorce care and the retreats, and I went to the conferences and I read the books and the counseling and everything that I could do to stop the pain, to figure out what I did wrong, and to make sure I never did it again.
So you mentioned that you grew up Catholic. At this point, were you in a Catholic church? Were you in a different kind of church? And what role did God in the church play in your healing?
Oh my goodness. God showed up in such a big way. So when we moved to Texas, we spent a year going to all the Catholic churches in, an hour radius. And at the end of that year, we had a neighbor at a Christmas party who said, "Why don't you come to my church?" And so we went, and that day I palpably felt God. It opened up my heart. And I just kept going to this, charismatic evangelistic church. And within a few months, just got baptized, got saved. I mean, every Sunday I went like I was the only one in the room and just cried. And this was Gateway Church, whatever the church had, I was there. Women's conferences, leadership conference, worship. I don't play an instrument, I don't sing, but I went to the worship conferences and everything you could possibly do. I did the Kairos, I did everything there. So God I just pursued him and he pursued me in such a big way. So it's been, at least a 15-year all in journey with God.
Oh, that's so good. I've been through Kairos and some of the things that you're talking about, and it's so powerful and amazing. Tell us just a little bit more about what that looked like for you, that leaning in and spending that time with God, maybe even in some practical ways.
He showed up in such big ways. I mean, I could fill a book with the miracles that God has done. One of the retreats I went on was through Fellowship of the Sword called Heart Quest. And, the kids were a little bit smaller then, and just getting to an event where you're gone for 5 days is a big deal when you're a busy woman and mom. And I got on the bus and I just fell asleep on the way there. And when I woke up, there was a brown bead that was just sitting right in front of me on the bus on the tray. And I'm like, what is this? And I felt like I heard God's voice say, I gave you brown eyes like a doe. And it was a brown bead that was in the shape of an eye. And he just started to show up, and I knew he was there. And in this last season, he has really increased my trust in him more than anything. I mean, I was used to earning a significant salary, and it was beautiful and wonderful, but the money is just coming from different ways now, and it's relying on my trust in him. Literally the other day, there was a box that showed up from Amazon. I'm like, I didn't order anything. So I contact Amazon and they said, oh, it's a mistake. Just keep it. I'm like, okay. So I was going to see what it was and maybe give it away. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this worth? And it was $66 item. So I threw it on Facebook Marketplace, and an hour later, someone's at my door handing me a $50 bill. I mean, he will do it in all kinds of ways. And it's been different. It's been fun, but it's increased my trust in him. And it's been a battle. I mean, it was a dark, grieving, bitter season for me. And my former husband was re-engaged within a month of our divorce, and our divorce only took a month, and he was remarried a few months later. So there was just a lot of unreasonable difficulty and hardship. And, of course, the kids needed a place for their anger, and I was that target. So it was a lot. Moved 4 times in 12 months. And so during that time, it was all about me and God and healing.
So you mentioned your kids in that. In what ways were you able to help support them through that process?
So you feel like you ruined your kids' lives, when you announce that to them. And my goal was to get 2 kids in college as successfully as I could. And I was able to do that, but just trying to keep their life normal, whatever that looked like. My son actually took off and moved across the country to go live with my mom. He said, I'm not hanging around for this. And looking back, I don't know that I could have handled him because he was angry. That would have just been a lot more on top of everything else. But him and my mom created this beautiful relationship because my dad had just passed. So God even ordained that, as much as I cried every day for 6 months when he left. But I just had to take their ugly, but also know how to set a boundary that it's not okay to treat mom this way. You can't treat a woman this way. You're going to have a mother-in-law one day, and you're going to have a wife one day. So I had to create safe boundaries and do things differently than I had in the past. So just gaining new skills, new parenting tools. And they were, 16 and 17. So that's a challenging age already. So we had to rebuild some trust because it broke down, and it took time and a lot of patience of just rebuilding the trust and them seeing who their mom really is. And so now I can say we're in a beautiful place. I mean, the prodigals came home, and our relationship is one of the best things in my life right now. And they're honoring and respectful, and God completely 180 redeemed it.
It's so beautiful. What God does, when I got divorced, my 16-year-old left to live in another state. So I understand the difficulty of that on some level, but I love that he got that time with your mom and how he was probably able to help her through that time and just the growth that happens. I think too often when we're going through divorce or we're blending a family, people think if I'm fine, the kids are fine. And we don't focus on the kids in that way. And so I love just the intentionality that you had during that season.
When people are hurt, you're going to do something. You're going to isolate. You're going to be angry. You're going to try and be the perfect one. You're going to be the sick one. You could rebel. I mean, you're going to pick something and do it. And so I was just aware of what they were doing. And then you try and shine truth and light on all of that. But it does take time. Their hearts were not ready and even my daughter isn't, it takes time. She's not fully there. She's still pretty defensive and doesn't have a great relationship with her dad. She really lost respect for him. So we just have to trust that God loves our kids more than we do and keep praying, being a prayer warrior, and showing up and unconditionally loving them, even when they're being ugly sometimes.
I mean, God is the best parent, right?
Yes.
And just kind of surrendering them to him as well is so important. So now you're a couple of years out. That was 2019.
Yes, January 2019.
And God's been doing some incredible things, as we mentioned at the top. So tell us more about the journey of getting to where you are now.
Yeah. So the day that I came home from getting 2 kids in college, I had a freshman and a sophomore. It was an 18-hour day of, driving and unpacking. I came home and I just remember collapsing on the couch and being like, okay, Lord, I checked that box. They've got cars and they've got cell phones and computers. Their tuition's paid. Like, we did it. Now what? And I really felt like God said, I want you to lead women out of the grief of divorce. And at first I was like, oh, no, not me. That is not my platform. I do not want that stage. I've been so personal, so quiet, so private about this. But I really felt like God said, this is what you need to do. So I got to work and I took 4 months and I created a curriculum based on the 2+ years that I had gone through of what really moved the needle. What made the difference for me out of all the things that I participated in. And so I hired a project manager and we created, a website and a brand. And I started teaching this course and it's called Intentionally Fabulous Single Redefined. And the 8 points that I really pulled out of my own journey was number 1 is identity. You need to know who you are and whose you are. Number 2 is forgiveness. And I wish I could say I did it first, but that was one of the last things. And I had said it with my mouth, but those bitter roots were still there. It was one of the last parts of my healing. Renewing your mind, because the enemy wants to keep us in the past and in regret, and just having that vision again and hope for a future. Purpose, because your purpose changes with different seasons of your life. The self-care and gratitude was another big part of it. And I found out what a superpower gratitude was. I've always been good about self-care. It was more the self-worth. And I see that a lot in the women that I work with. Their self-care goes down. Their self-worth is way down. And then divine health, which that's my superpower. I've done that for so many years. I love to talk to people about being healthy and well because I kept that part throughout my season. I was still getting up and exercising, even when I didn't feel like it. I was making my green drinks, but I see a lot of people really let their health slide. And that's one of the easiest things that you can turn around. And when you do that, it overflows into the other areas. And then abundant wealth, because single women, single moms are the biggest area of poverty in this country. And they just get such a poverty mindset and minimalist thinking. And then the last part was joy, resurrection, and celebration, because it's not always going to just be hard, difficult, struggle, and suffering. There is going to be a mountaintop again.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. That is so needed. Everything that you just said is amazing. Divorce, it's so common anyway, but then talk a little bit about 2020 and what happened in marriages during that time and why all this is so valuable.
Yeah, so with COVID, there definitely were some adjustments that happened to the statistics of divorce. Less people got married. People are definitely getting married later. People are living together, not getting married. They're getting prenuptial agreements. The age for marriage got pushed up to 28. Used to be, when our parents, it was like 18, 20, 22, 24. Now it's 28. The number 1 age group that's getting divorced is 30. And then the second biggest age group to get divorced is 50, which is where I was, where, okay, now the kids are gone, you're empty nesters, you don't even really know each other, you don't like each other, you're 2 hurt people hurting each other continually, and one person is brave enough to leave. So there are definitely less people committing to a monogamous relationship today.
Yeah, it's so sad. I just heard someone use the term gray divorce, talking about women and men, obviously, couples over 50 that have been married all this time and raised their kids and then going through divorce. So you have your Intentionally Fabulous, you have this course that they can do. Tell us a little bit more about what else you offer.
Yeah, so I do offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching for women going through any stages of divorce. I mean, the grief could be from you're blindsided to maybe you've been thinking about leaving for 2 years or more, which is the average. The person who leaves has been thinking about it for 2 years. So I do have a book called Success Habits of Superachievers, which is really about encouraging people. It's to give you hope and faith. And there's stories in there of people, ordinary people who just got back up again, knocked down 10, got up 11, and did something great with it. And so building that grit and resilience. And they can get that free on my website. It's kellicalabrese.com if they want the electronic version, or they can get the hard copy on Amazon. And I have, for people local to the DFW area, I recently started a new group with a girlfriend called Active Singles DFW. And we are really embracing this single season. Like, this is a bonus life. We get another chance. And, we love the Bible studies and all of that, but we need to go out and have some fun. So we started this group 3 months ago. There's already almost 800 people, and we are having a great time. And people are coming out saying, this is an answer to prayer. Like, we wanted a paddleboard, but we didn't want to go alone. And we wanted to go to the gun range, but we didn't want to go to the movies or anything by ourselves. And we're going to concerts. And it's just been so much fun. Right now, getting ready to plan an event that's going to be at a ranch where everyone's going to bring their favorite family food, and we're going to go walk the trails and ride the horses. And we're doing a camping event coming up in a couple weekends. And we have people who have stepped up and said, if someone cannot afford to go to the movies or the conference or camping, we want to create scholarships. So people have already donated money. And so now we've added outreach and service. So it's not just having fun in a godly way, but really being the hands and feet of Jesus, meeting the needs of the members in our community, and then also in the DFW Metroplex.
I could not be more excited about this group. I have sent links to a couple of women already that need this, because I keep hearing we need community, especially after the pandemic. I think so many people just got used to staying home. It kind of became their comfort zone, but now they're wanting to get out, but they've lost community. We're no longer in office buildings as much, so you're not connecting with those people. But in getting divorced at an age where your children are older, because I know it was different when my kids were little, I would go to their football games, I'm meeting those parents. And so at this stage of life, working from home, it's a lot harder to meet people. And then as a newly single person in this stage of life, I think it's super exciting. And I love that you're doing the outreach, because I think a lot of women will be like, I've actually never changed my tire before,
Yes.
or a lot of other things. And I love that you offer the financial piece as well in your thing, because that's if you just let your husband handle all of that and now suddenly everything's your responsibility, what a great opportunity to have an amazing group that can help you with that.
It is so beautiful. It is definitely the hands and feet of Jesus. We have one woman in our group who's a widower, and she figured for the first time she had to learn how to do things. Well, she started making videos. So she installed her alarm system on her house, and she did change her tire and, just changing batteries or whatever. So she has this YouTube channel now that is taken off of her, teaching other women, like, you can do these things. So many beautiful people just creating beauty out of ashes and going out and being salt and light, because no one has the story they thought they would have. And it is going to be hard, but we can come together. We don't have to struggle. In my group, Intentionally Fabulous, I just ask a couple questions when they come into the group. And one of them is, what is your greatest challenge? And loneliness is by far the biggest answer. So the community is so important, especially divorce is a life event for a reason. You probably moved. You're probably in a new space where maybe you don't know people, and the enemy wants to isolate you. He wants you to stay home by yourself and lie to you, tell you you're not good enough, you're not pretty, you're too old, it's too late, you've made too many mistakes. So come out, play, have some fun, serve, and just be with other people who love God.
That is amazing. We will put all the links in the show notes so that they can find you, find your book, find your website, find your groups, and connect to all the things. But I have one last question for you. And you've done so many things in your life, so I'll be interested to see which one you choose. But I want to know, what was the bravest thing you've ever done?
Oh, that's a good question. I need to be braver. I feel like I'm only just beginning. I've traveled by myself young. I remember being, 17 and getting on a plane by myself because I wanted to be a fitness professional, and flying from New York to California, no cell phones, didn't know anyone, didn't know where I was going. And so I guess, I kind of started there. I came from a family where there wasn't a lot of change. Everyone was in the same town, went to the same school as my mom. So my parents weren't super adventurous, even though they were entrepreneurs. But I love doing active things. I guess the bravest thing has been getting back up after this divorce and now leading other women to do the same. I do teach divorce care at my church. I do care coaching at my church, and brave enough to sit, at the feet of people who are hurting. I think that's probably one of the bravest things that I can do, is just sit there with them and be with them and, coach them any way I can to see truth and to give them a reason to get back up one more day.
I love it. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here. I love your story. I'm super inspired. All the things that you've done, I think, all took so much courage. And I know that I've been inspired by your story, and I'm just so grateful to have had you on today.
Well, I love what you're doing. The world needs it. Thank you for going out and bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining me for today's conversation. If this resonated with you, please save this podcast to your playlist and share it with your friends. If there's a conversation that you want to hear, make sure and reach out at braveone.net and send a topic request. Until our next episode, remember to put your brave on.